Yo, what's going on, guys? So today it's Italian, and I already know the maintenance is going to be somewhat tragic. People say it's not a sport bike, but I mean, come on, look at it, man. Ninja 650, you got the Honda 650. Even wheelies, you want to do a wheelie? I have to go to Yamaha and service my bike because it's done 6k miles. So I thought it would be appropriate to give my thoughts and opinions on owning a Yamaha 7 for a year, or just over a year, and put in about 6.2k miles on the clock. Alright, let's talk about some of the specs first, if you guys are not too familiar with the R7. So it's a 689cc, I believe, but they just call it a 700cc with 73.4 brake horsepower. Can't miss the 0.4 there. Absolutely crucial. It's a 2-cylinder. It's basically the same engine as the 07. The only difference between the 07 and the R7 really, in terms of like how the way the engine is and whatnot, is they've extended the gear ratio on the R7, so the gears are a little bit longer. The seat height, I believe 835 millimeters, so you do sit relatively high. I'm 5'9" and I can, or 5'10", I'm not sure, I don't know. I'm 5'9" or 5'10", but I can flat foot this bike no problem, not an issue at all. The tank size, which I actually have a bit of an issue with, is only 13 liters, so it's not exactly too big at all. You'll be filling up quite a lot, to be fair, especially because it's a 700cc. I'm not too sure what the top speed is, but I've got 149 miles per hour before. The bike weighs 188 kilograms. It's not exactly the lightest of things, but it's also not as heavy as a liter. But I suppose like the Honda SP RRR whatever only weighs like 180 kg as well. But that bike is absolutely insane. It's not too heavy and it's not as light as a 125. Now the torque on this thing is absolutely crazy, guys. This is, I think, one of the best selling points about this bike. It has 67 newton meters of torque at 6.5k RPMs, so it's quite torquey for a 2-cylinder. I think it's probably the torquiest 2-cylinder out there, to be honest. I'm not too sure about this figure, but I believe it's about 42 foot-pounds of torque. I could be wrong. And if you was to walk into the dealership today and buy this bike brand new, it would probably set you back around 8,900, around there, depending the dealership, of course, but around that price in the UK. That was the specs. Not all of the specs, but I think the most important specs, to be fair. So moving on from the specs, let's talk about the comfort of this bike. Me, as I said, I'm 5'9/5'10", I don't know, somewhere between there, and I don't feel like I'm overly slanted, and I also don't feel like I'm completely upright like a naked bike. You definitely feel like you're in a sporty position, especially if you scoot your butt back. I did take this bike to Wales and I had to stop maybe like every 2 hours, hour and a half, just because my back was starting to hurt a little bit. It's definitely got that sporty feel to it, for sure. But let's talk about the power on this thing. Like I said, it's a 700cc. It's got 72 brake horsepower, 73 newton meters of torque. Yeah, it definitely picks up and goes. And because the R7 or the CP2 engine generates most of its power down low, you don't have to worry about being in a high gear to generate that power. I'm at 3k RPMs right now. Just give it a throttle and it picks up and goes. This bike is just a torque machine. Even wheelies, you want to do a wheelie? Wheelies are no issue for this bike either. So I actually rode an R6 not too long ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago. Don't get me wrong, that bike is quick, especially once you get past like 10k RPMs. But for me, I think it's just too much for city riding. And that was a 650, I think. And he had a flip plate, he's booking it. Definitely for city riding, you honestly don't need more power than what this bike produces. It's enough. It really is. Just and it's not even the top speed that really matters. It's just the torque. The torque is what makes a bike fun. Like how fast you can get to that speed, you know? That's what really gives you that adrenaline. Let's talk about the appearance of this bike. And truly, people say it's not a sport bike, but I mean, come on, look at it, man. It just looks like a sport bike. Yamaha always have that aggressive look to their bikes. They just look mean. They look absolutely menacing. If Batman had a daily motorbike, he would definitely have a Yamaha. Like, there's something about these bikes that just looks so mean. It catches so much attention as well. People love it. I mean, obviously don't get a bike for that reason, but it's such a nice bike, man. It looks so good. Now, the maintenance on this bike, I haven't had any issues. Actually, to be fair, I've had one. My brake fluid was leaking just a tiny bit, and I took it to Yamaha maybe about a month ago, and all they did was tighten the screw, and it was completely fine. That was the only issue I've had with this bike. And obviously I bought it new, so I had to go to Yamaha at 600 miles to do a fresh oil change and a filter change. I didn't have to go back again, but I went back at 2,500 just to do another oil change, because I like regularly doing oil changes. That's it. I've had no real issues with the bike. It's ran perfectly. Now, the things I've done to this bike, I haven't done a lot either, to be fair. It's mainly stock. Obviously I've put this slough here. I've put the slough there, but I've also got a quick shifter, which I got from Yamaha when I bought the bike. They offer that as an accessory. It's only up though, it's not a blipper as well. You can only shift up, not down. I have also put rim tape on the wheels. Funny enough, I ordered it from eBay and it said sky blue, and this sky blue looked like, okay, not how the sky looks now, but it was blue. And when it came, it was a dark blue, and I already put 2 of the stripes on the wheel, so I thought fuck it. So if you actually look, the rim tape color is not the same as the turquoise color of the R7, but fuck it, no one really notices it, so I don't give a fuck, to be fair. I was thinking about changing it, but I'm lazy, man. You can't tell from far, and people can't really tell from close up either until I like mention it, like it's a different color. I have also put an exhaust on it, and it's not an SE project. It looks like one, but it's the next best thing. £69 from AliExpress, and it does the job, can't even lie. People always asking me, what exhaust is it? It's £69 from AliExpress, can't even lie. Can't even lie. It sounds good though. It does sound good, and it's a full system, stainless steel, and it does the job. Now let me compare the R7 to similar bikes in this class range. So for example, you got the Ninja 650, you got the Honda 650. I don't know if there's an R in front of it or not, but it's the more sportier version, it's not the naked version. And you've obviously got the Aprilia 660 RS, and I believe that's the main brands competing in that field. But yeah, I rode the 650 Honda maybe about 2 weeks ago, and honestly, if you're looking for a sport bike, I wouldn't get it. It feels like a naked, like, I'm gonna trigger some people here, it feels like a naked bike. I know people say the R7 is not a sport bike, but believe me, it feels like a sport bike. You get on that bike, you feel like you're sitting on a naked. Just get a naked. I don't like, cool, it's got a 4-cylinder, cool, it kind of looks like a sport bike, but it don't feel like one when you ride it. Just feels like a naked. The whole point of a sport bike is to be somewhat uncomfortable, somewhat, you know, on edge. With that bike, it wasn't giving me sport bike vibes. You can get a naked bike with a 4-cylinder, so the sound is not enough for me. And let's be honest, the 2CP engine, it sounds amazing, and people that hate on it and say, yeah, but it doesn't sound like it should be a sport bike, well, look at the R1. The R1 is not a screaming 4-cylinder either. It's a very aggressive sounding bike, just like the CP2 engine. So to say it doesn't have that 4-cylinder screaming noise, so it's not a sport bike, it doesn't make sense, because naked bikes have screaming 4-cylinders. So for me, a sport bike should be a sport bike. That Honda sits way too comfortable to be a sport bike for me. It truly felt like a naked when I was riding it. And the Ninja 650, I haven't rode it, so I couldn't tell you, but I'm gonna make an educated guess and just say it's probably more comfortable than the Honda. The Aprilia 660 RS. Now, I was conflicted between the R7 and that bike. The only reason I didn't get the 660 RS was because it's Italian, and I already know the maintenance is going to be somewhat tragic. To be fair, I've always been a Yamaha kind of guy though, but the Aprilia was definitely, like, it just had more horsepower, it was still somewhat sporty, and it sounded really nice as well. But of course I ended up getting the R7, and to be honest, I just wanted the sportiest feeling bike I could get, and between those two, the R7 is just a bit more sportier. Like, it's more aggressive, the handlebars are lower, the foot pegs are higher. But yeah, the pros of this bike, I mean, there's so many, I can't list them all. Honestly, I can't list them. It's just too much fun, this bike. The cons really depend, right? Because I could say the comfort is not great, but it's a sport bike. So for cons, I don't really have any. Maybe if it had a little bit more technology, but then again, I don't really want traction control. I don't want wheelie control. I don't want these settings. ABS is enough for me. And even with ABS, at some point I'm going to turn it off because I want to do stoppies. And for those that are watching, if you're thinking about getting this bike, just get it. Trust me, just get it. You won't be disappointed at all. If you're conflicted between a naked and a sport bike, just get the sport bike. I've owned a Honda 500F before. It was a naked, and it's just not the same feeling you get from being on a sport bike. So if you're thinking about getting a sport bike and you're looking at like these classes of bikes, just get the R7. I wouldn't even recommend the Honda. Honestly, the only two I would consider is the Aprilia 660 RS and the Yamaha R7. The rest are not even sport bikes. They don't count. Please don't be mad at me in the comments, but they don't count. They feel too comfortable. It's not, I'm not getting sport bike vibes from it. And yeah, I think that will conclude this review on the beautiful Yamaha R7. So I want to thank you guys for watching and making it to the end, and just get the bike. Just get the bike. And with that being said, I'll see you guys later.